Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll give a couple of minutes for folks to enter into our virtual room. All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you for joining us, those of you who may be choosing to watch the video asynchronously. For those of you in the room, we know that we have many of you joining us from across the US today. So feel free to say hello and introduce yourself using the chat. Share your name, your institution or organization, and where you're calling from. So, for example, I'm Leanne Davis at the Hope Center at Temple University, and I'm joining you today from Seattle, Washington. Next slide. Great. So again, we're so excited that you're here with us today. At the Hope Center, our commitment to helping institutions develop and implement equitable, systemic, and sustainable approaches to supporting students' basic needs drove us to create the Hope Impact Partnerships model. Through HIP, we're helping our institutional partners utilize high-quality data alongside programming and coaching to help them identify actionable steps to build momentum for change on their campuses. And in June, just last month, we released an exciting new tool to help support these goals, our newly developed data dashboard. We know, and you know, that colleges and universities need quality, comprehensive, disaggregated data to assess the needs of their students and to be able to advocate for the necessary tools and resources to serve them. The Hope Center's new data dashboard makes that possible. We're really excited to share more with you during our time together today. So first, we're going to start with an overview of findings from Hope's 2023 Student Basic Needs Survey that was fielded in spring 2023. Next, we'll get a look inside Hope's newly launched data dashboard, an innovative tool that helps institutions better understand their students' experiences with basic needs and use the data to build momentum for change. Then we'll share with you how institutions are fielding the survey and accessing the data dashboard through the Hope Impact Partnerships. We'll also hear from Sarah King, one of our HIP partners at Del Mar Community College. Last, as we wrap up, we'll show you where to learn more about anything we've shared with you today. And a couple of housekeeping notes to get as we get started. We're in webinar mode, so we'll be using both the chat and the Q&A functions. If you have questions for us, please use the Q&A button. We'll do our best to answer as we go or provide a written response. And if for some reason we aren't able to get to your question, then we'll happily follow up with you after our presentation today. With that, I'm thrilled to introduce our speakers. So first, Sarah King. She is Del Mar College's Director of Student Engagement and Retention on the new Oso Creek campus. She's been with the campus for 12 years and served in various student affairs roles, and she helps lead the basic needs work and Hope Impact Partnerships team that's been working with the Hope Center from Del Mar College. David Thompson is a practitioner researcher at the Hope Center, and if you haven't already, hopefully you were able to read this terrific blog post that David wrote a couple of weeks ago that we shared in our newsletter blast that announced this webinar. And he's really led the development of our data dashboard tool. And Dr. Stacy Praniski, Senior Evaluation Associate and Research Assistant Professor at the Hope Center at Temple University. Stacy has really led the survey fielding and implementation across all of our institutional partners. She works on a number of other projects at Hope, but we're thrilled to have her here with us today to talk about survey data. And last, I'm Leanne Davis. I'm a Senior Director of Education and Training at HOPE. So I lead the team that leads the HOPE Impact Partnerships. Next. So most of you know us at the Hope Center. We're an action research center that's housed in the Lewis Katz School of Medicine at Temple University. We are a collaborative team, storytellers, researchers, policy advisors, and advocates who envision a world where basic needs and security is no longer a barrier to pursuing and completing college. We take a systems change approach in all of our work, where we hope to rebuild a higher ed landscape where educational opportunity is both universal and equitable. These stats on the screen are a sober reminder of what students tell us they are experiencing and why identifying and addressing student basic needs is important and essential component to their success. 3 in 5 students experience basic needs insecurity related to food and housing. This has been remarkably and tragically consistent over the years that the Hope Center has fielded a basic needs survey. We hope to be in a world eventually where the Hope Center doesn't exist, and we no longer need to continue advocating for students' basic needs. But until that point, we're here. We're going to continue working and partnering with our institutions and working to advocate on behalf of students so that institutions can better serve their needs. Stacy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Leanne. I'm so pleased to be here with you all today and to share a little bit about the results of our survey from spring 2023. We were very pleased to field our revamped Student Basic Needs Survey with 65 partners this year, representing 80 campuses, 69 of which were community colleges. Over 60,000 students responded to our survey to tell us about their experiences in college, and the average response rate across all of our partners was 12%, which is consistent with other large population level campus surveys. Next slide, please. I want to start by just telling you a little bit about our sample, the characteristics of the students who completed the survey. You know from the students that you work with, and we see confirmed in our data, that the stereotypical traditional student coming out of high school and attending college full-time for 4 years with the financial support of their parents simply is not reflective of today's average student. And we see that in our data as well. So in our sample, 24% of respondents were parenting students, 37% had received a Pell Grant, 44% were over age 25, 42% were enrolled part-time, 56% were first-generation college students, defined as having no parent or guardian that had completed a college degree or credential, and 59% were students of color, with Latina and Hispanic students being the largest population within that group. Students always say things better than I can, and they are, after all, the experts on their experiences in college. So I try as often as I can to incorporate their own words. So on our survey, we ask students what the world needs to know about what it's like to be a college student. And this is what 2 students told us about who is a college student today. There are multiple different stories and paths that people take to be in a place to be called a college student. Additionally, there are many different flavors of college students. I want my school to know that not all college students are young teenagers and 20-year-olds. The older student body matters just as much, and we should have access to all the programs, special activity days for single parents or parents who are going back to school, period, to enjoy. Earlier, Leanne showed you that statistic that 3 in 5 students who have taken our survey over time were experiencing basic needs insecurity with regard to food and housing. The number for 2023 is the same, as you can see in the box at the bottom of the screen here. 3 in 5 students in spring of 2023 told us that they were experiencing food insecurity, housing insecurity, or homelessness. When we expand our view to consider students' mental health as part of their basic needs, we see that 3 in 4 students are experiencing these significant obstacles to success, as you see represented in the purple box at the top of your screen. So 42% of students in our sample were experiencing food insecurity, 49% were experiencing housing insecurity, 14% were experiencing homelessness, and 45% were experiencing clinically significant symptoms of anxiety and/or depression. And this is based on the population screens we include in our survey, which allow us to identify students who are most likely to be diagnosed with anxiety or depression if they were to be seen by a clinician. And we know that basic needs insecurity isn't just a personal issue. This isn't something that students are dealing with outside the classroom in a vacuum. We know that basic needs are an academic issue as well. And so we asked students about the ways in which lack of basic needs access interferes with their academics. 17% of parenting students told us that they had missed class due to childcare access issues. 12% told us they had missed assignments due to internet or technology access. 18% of respondents were late to class or work due to transportation access issues. And 37% of students who took our survey told us that emotional or mental difficulties hurt their academic performance. Again, I'm going to lean on students' own words to tell us about what it's like to be going through these challenges. It's very expensive, even for basic necessities, and challenging in every aspect. It can also build character despite the challenges. However, no one should have to struggle for basic needs to be met. It's very rewarding to know that I took the steps to provide a better life for me and my son. As a single parent, I face many difficulties with finances, time, transportation, and also being able to juggle being a student, a parent, a full-time employee. I'm willing to go through whatever I can so that I can finish and have a better life and less financial worry. And I'm sure these stories are not unfamiliar to you all and the students that you work with. Documenting students' needs and obstacles like those I've reviewed on the last few slides are absolutely essential to the work that we do at the Hope Center and with all of our partners, but it's only the first step. Additional insights are needed in order to turn these data into action. Specifically, our partners want to know who is experiencing basic needs insecurity, what is preventing students from accessing the resources that they need, and how they can increase the impact of the services they offer on their campuses. So we make sure that our survey includes key data points for our partners to use to address each of these questions and ensure that they're able to leverage the survey data in order to make changes for students. So first, who is experiencing basic needs insecurity? We know from our survey data that various types of basic needs insecurities impact nearly every student demographic, but they're not equally distributed. So you see some examples here of disparities in the rates of the types of obstacles we were discussing on the previous slides related to food, housing, homelessness, and mental health. Some groups are more likely to experience basic needs insecurity than others, which makes addressing these obstacles a justice issue. So in our 2023 data, we saw that about 80% of Black and Indigenous students were experiencing these obstacles, 79% of parenting students, and 85% of LGBTQIA+ students were experiencing these obstacles. Second, we know from our survey data that a plurality of students experiencing basic needs insecurities are not accessing the services that they need. So what are those barriers that are preventing students from accessing services? We ask students what causes them to receive fewer services than they would otherwise. And the data I'm showing here are among students who were experiencing those obstacles related to food, housing, homelessness, or mental health. There were a list of obstacles for students to choose from, and they could choose as many as they liked. What you see here is that by far the most common obstacle reported was issues related to awareness. Students either didn't know that these resources were available to them, they didn't think they were eligible to receive resources, or they didn't know how to get access to them. Another major concern that students shared with us were concerns about the scarcity of resources. Over 1 in 4 students told us that they were worried about using the resources because they thought others needed those supports more. And we also heard from students that availability is a real issue, that the services aren't available at a time when they can access them because of their other obligations, or simply not having enough time around their classes, their work, and their other obligations. When we're thinking about these barriers as a justice issue, we can also look at how the barriers reported differ for different groups. So for example, if you could advance, David, scarcity concerns came up as more commonly selected by LGBTQIA plus students. 35% of these students told us they were concerned about taking resources that others needed more, as compared to 27% in the general population. Next slide, please. So finally, we know that these obstacles exist and that awareness is a particularly big issue that students are telling us about. So how can schools increase the impact of their services for students? So we asked students on our survey how they would like to receive information about available supports. And again, these data I'm showing you are among those who were experiencing those obstacles related to food, housing, homelessness, or mental health. The vast majority of students told us that they like to receive information via email. This is no surprise, but we also know that students have other modes of communication that they like to hear from their schools. So 38% of students told us they'd like to hear about basic needs resources via text, and 28% told us they'd like to see information about resources on online platforms such as Canvas or other learning management systems. And again, if we think about outreach as a justice issue, we can look at how different groups prefer to be contacted about basic needs supports. So for example, Black students were more likely to say that they preferred to be reached via text message. So 48% of Black students told us they'd like their schools to reach out via text, compared to 38% in the general population. So before we move on to our next section, we just want to pause for one moment to see if anyone has any questions about what has been presented so far. I'll give folks a minute to type into the Q&A if you have questions. I am, of course, also happy to respond to additional questions as they come up. But we'll go ahead and move on to the next section. So what I've shown so far are just some examples of the types of actionable data points that we provide for our partners through our basic needs survey. Now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, David Thompson, who will show you that new tool that we're very excited about that allows our partners to explore the results of their own campus as they build out an action plan to support students. Over to you, David.
Perfect. Thank you, Stacy. And so this is kind of a screenshot. I'm going to actually take us right into the dashboard itself here and log in as our little example school so that you can see the dashboard live and in action. And so as you'll see, navigating, this is the landing page when you log in for our partners who have requested dashboard access. And usually how that works is we have our partners indicate to us who on their campus they want to have access to this tool. So thinking about their basic needs staff, their HIP team, of course, but also any sort of senior administrators, folks in financial aid, in institutional resource or institutional research, folks at the foundation, anyone whose work is tangential to basic needs, who could benefit from having access to this data, who can really support those efforts as they work to build this support ecosystem more widely across campus, recognizing that the work really does take the full institution to be effective, to reach all students, and to really be sustainable long term. And so when folks log in, they go to this landing page, which gives an overview of the aggregate level data for their institution. And so I'm going to kind of scroll us slowly through each of the sections and each of the visualizations there, and then we'll hop into a section so that we can see some of the disaggregation tools that are available. But sort of as we go through from top to bottom here, I have just a brief synopsis of the Student Basic Needs Survey, and then as well as an overview of the really high level data points for the institution in terms of basic needs and security, food insecurity, housing insecurity, and homelessness, as well as the response period, number of respondents, response rate, as well as over here an option to download a static image of this, essentially this page of the PDF report that gives the overview aggregate data for each section. Then there's also a jump to a section button here, so you can navigate to any particular section of interest to you. And as you can see, the sections that we've got: mental health, families, overall basic needs and security, food insecurity, housing insecurity, homelessness, and then utilization of basic needs support. So many of the data points that Stacy had just shown available here through the dashboard. So as we go section by section here, seeing in mental health, we've got personal experiences with mental health challenges, and then clicking on these arrows pushes over to each visualization in that section. Again, the aggregate overall view. So mental health support preferences. So in this case, the types of resources that students indicated they preferred for their mental health needs. And then again, barriers to mental health service use. So what are some of the challenges that students are experiencing in accessing any available supports? Then popping down to families. This particular visualization showing experiences with childcare. So essentially whether they missed class time due to difficulties with childcare, and whether or not they felt that childcare was affordable or unaffordable. Going into our overall basic needs and security, seeing food insecurity, homelessness, housing insecurity, and then students that were experiencing any of those particular challenges, sort of all graphed together. These are, again, the same numbers that you would see at the at a glance section at the top, just visualized a different way here for you. And scrolling down into our food insecurity section, we've got the different levels here. So high food security, marginal food security, low food security, and very low food security. So giving you those different gradations of challenges that the students are experiencing, so you can kind of see where the population falls. And then also more specifically, some experiences with food insecurity. So things like whether they worried their food would run out, whether they couldn't afford to eat balanced meals, were cutting the size of their meals or skipping meals, not eating altogether for an entire day, that sort of thing are captured in that visualization. Scrolling down to housing insecurity, have a similar visualization there for things like whether they didn't pay or are underpaid rent or mortgage, went to default or collections, experienced an increase in their rent or mortgage that was unaffordable, whether they moved, whether they left an unsafe household. And similarly with homelessness, sort of the overall experience of experiencing homelessness, but then also some of the different categories within that. So they stayed with friends or relatives, at a hotel or motel, transitional housing, an outdoor location, and abandoned building, that sort of thing, to give a little bit more granularity to the specific student experiences there. And then as Stacy mentioned, sort of not just documenting the extent of these challenges, but also the supports, the resources, utilization. We have information about the use of supports that cuts across a few different types of resources and supports that are pretty common. And then this chart breaking down whether students have heard of them, whether they heard of them and didn't use them or did use them, just to kind of give voice to that awareness, concern, and maybe target some of the services and resources where outreach has been perhaps less effective than in other cases. Then again, here the barriers again broken down a little bit more for your student population, the way students prefer to hear about available resources, and then another sort of more specific piece, use of public benefits, recognizing that those are an important piece of the puzzle to help support students, given that institutions can't do everything always, and in many cases there's a lot of great work, a lot of great services that exist out in the community and among local government agencies. And so what are students' use of these benefits, and maybe some opportunities there to strengthen that work. And then finally, at the bottom of the overall landing page, we have respondent demographics. So a little bit more information about the overall sample related to gender, LGBTQIA+ status, race, ethnicity, age, enrollment status, years in college, whether or not they're a Pell Grant recipient, level of parental education, the type of credential that they're in school for, whether they're a STEM or a non-STEM major student, and whether they're a parenting student. So this gives a little bit more breakdown of the student population, so that you can, as you digest your data, as you explore the data, examine how well it sort of represents and reflects the full student body. Are there groups that are overrepresented, underrepresented? Just to kind of give you that extra context to keep in mind as you think about next steps, taking action with that data. Then I'm going to pop up back to the top here and take us into a visualization so that we can see a little bit more about the comparison and disaggregation tools that are available. So again, we have this jump to a section option that lets you move between different variables, or different sections, I should say, so that you can navigate quickly. This is our mental health section. As you can see, all three are on the same page here. And then what we have for our partners accessing the dashboard using this information, we have comparison views so that folks can look at similar institutions. So in this case, 2-year colleges or 4-year colleges, depending on what your institution is. You can compare your data to the aggregate of other HIP partners that match that characteristic. If your school is part of a system, we have that comparison as well, as to kind of compare yourself to the other aggregates in the system there. Similarly with state. So in this case, a California example, being able to compare to the other California schools, and then the disaggregation options, race, ethnicity, gender, LGBTQIA+ status, Pell Grant recipient status, enrollment status, whether or not the student respondent's experiencing BNI, and parenting status. So I'm going to click on a couple of these just to kind of show them in action. So we'll start with similar institutions. So this is Long Beach City College here in our example data compared to other 2-year institutions. As you can see, it bounces to just the one comparison. And so then over here on the right, this allows folks to toggle between each of the bars in that main graph, just to make the data a little bit easier to digest. In this particular comparison, it's not too bad, but as we get into some of the other examples, you'll see that there's a lot of data on the screen, so it makes it a little bit more tricky to kind of parse everything and take it in. But so here you toggle between here. So then this is whether those challenges affected academic performance, whether students had mental health needs. So in this case, having those symptoms of anxiety or depression, but then not accessing services, medication, that sort of thing. So we've got the comparison there. And then if we swap down here to race, ethnicity as a disaggregation, this is sort of the full then Long Beach City College sample again. And then you can see toggling between each of the bars. So for anxiety and depression, this is the sample broken down by those different race, ethnicity categories, so you can kind of compare, contrast where there may be elevated need as compared to some groups versus others, where that may want you to target your outreach or your services, or maybe you can kind of reflect on why certain populations are having greater challenges, thinking about those basic needs supports in that other section. If there's disparities there, are certain groups using the supports more than others? Why not? That sort of thing. And then again, toggling through each of these sections lets you see a few different pieces. And then we will, I think, pop down here to parenting student status. You can see for parenting students, not parenting students, some of the comparisons there as well. So those are the kind of the main tools. Within each section, you'll see we have notes that provide additional context, additional information for users of the materials. And then also I'm going to navigate over to our side menu here. We have our using the dashboard page, which provides some additional guides for context, understanding the dashboard, understanding the data, so that folks who haven't necessarily been with us through HIP, but are part of their institutional team, getting that dashboard access over time, are able to navigate themselves, immerse themselves in the data just as quickly and seamlessly as their partners. The dashboard is also home to our resources page, where links out to some of our most commonly used and frequently requested resources, such as past reports, some of our behind the food pantry guides, some of our other sort of practitioner research resources, our policy guides, that sort of thing. And then finally, our new piece, which I'm gonna dip into briefly here and then pop back over the presentation, our learning modules, the Hope Center Basics on Basic Needs, which is a new series of video and then supplementary resources designed for a broader audience, beyond just folks that are accessing the dashboard at your institution, but really the full institutional group, that give folks an orientation to, when we talk about basic needs, what are we talking about? How do we approach this issue? How do we understand this issue? And then kind of, again, here, sort of walking through it as a systemic problem, something that we have to address, not just at the individual student level, but really at the systems change level, and in terms of policies and practices, both within the institution and sort of more broadly outside the institution. And then, wrapping up with a look at how folks can become part of the solution. So we have these breakdowns here, give a little bit of orientation, again, the video, and then view more, some supplementary resources that coincide with each video, to provide a little bit more grounding, a little bit more information to flesh out what's covered. And again, our vision for these really is for folks at our partner institutions to take them, spread them widely throughout their student body, use them in the classroom, use them for faculty and staff professional development, use them in presentations to senior leadership, to trustees, to really any of the key decision makers, to help folks understand what the challenges are, and give them that grounding of the student experience, the really personal nature of what's happening, but then also backed by dashboard data, backed by some of these really actionable pieces of information and insight, to welcome more folks into the conversation, like I said, to help make it a more systemic, campus-wide ecosystem of support. So I'm going to briefly then pop back into our presentation to share just a little bit of an example here of what we get in these modules, in the video portions. I'm going to have to. Let me know if you can hear sound as I go. I think it should be set, but just to be safe.
I have no sound.
Not hearing sound, David.
Okay, no sound. Let me see. Okay. I am not seeing the usual buttons that I hope to see. So in this case, we may have to go off the captions, but they are all captioned. So in case sound does become an issue, they can be shared more broadly that way. So I will hit play again here.
Play it with the captions.
And just, yep, and check it out with the captions. Yeah, so that gives you a little bit of a gist of what those videos are. Again, setting the groundwork for folks sort of more broadly beyond your institutional teams, your partnerships, to really engage in the conversation and be part of that transformative work moving forward. So I'm going to pop us back into the PowerPoint and turn it back over to Leanne.
Great, thank you, David. And if you have any questions, we saw a couple of questions come in about the data dashboard or access to the dashboard. If you have any questions, please just keep sending them our way and we will answer them in the chat as we go. So I'm going to talk for just a couple of moments about the Hope Impact Partnerships. So at the Hope Center, our commitment to helping institutions develop and implement equitable, systemic, and sustainable approaches to supporting students' basic needs really is what drove us to create the Hope Impact Partnerships. Through HIP, we're helping our institutional partners utilize high quality data alongside the programming and coaching to help them identify actionable steps to build momentum for change on their campuses. Our work is firmly grounded in rigorous science, thoughtful practice, and social justice. We're working with our HIP partners to accelerate the work that they're already doing to improve student persistence and graduation rates and to advance equity goals. And our partners are using real-time data, as you just saw in the data dashboard, to assess students' basic needs and campus policies and programs through some other tools we've developed but have not shared with you today. While we also provide support to help analyze, plan, and take action to improve students' basic needs, security, and well-being. Next. We've recognized that differences between institutions and goals, bandwidth, and local context, all exist. And so we've created a few different ways for institutions to engage with institutions. And we know from working with hundreds at this point that you're all in different places on your basic needs journey, and we're really here to support that at many different points. So we designed 3 different partnership levels, and each has assessment, training, and learning communities that will match your team's current goals, strengths, needs, and capacity. Level 1 is really an introduction to students' basic needs. Most of our partners are gathering student data, some off, for the first time, or maybe for the first time in a few years. They're hoping to identify student basic needs and security trends in specific areas and to identify subpopulations that have the highest need. Level 2, we focus more on holistic view and action planning. We, again, the institutional partners we work with gather student data to identify trends, but then they also map students' needs against an inventory of campus programs and services. And at going into the second year of that 2-year partnership, we work with our partners to create an action plan using the survey data and the inventory to identify priority areas and the next steps to increase student basic needs, security, and well-being. Level 3, our implementation lab, is the most experimental, and it focuses on around program design, implementation, and assessment. We start from creating institutional action plans and map the implementation priorities to increase basic needs, security, and well-being. And we're really working with our partners on program design and evaluation. We're also helping to foster connections across institutions for peer community feedback, for institutional leaders, and for task force members. This slide just illustrates briefly some of the activities that we have planned for our partners, and you can see this in more detail on our Hope Center website. Next. Next is just a call to action or something for you to reflect on today. When institutions join HIP, they become part of a values-aligned community that's committed to reimagining and creating a better future together. So if you're at an institution, or perhaps you're working in an organization or a system, take a moment and think about this. How would you use the data dashboard and the learning modules to facilitate conversations around basic needs programming, either on your campus or in your office? Think about what action you might want this type of data to inspire, either at your institution and in your community. And if you want to learn more, and if you're ready to take action, then you can visit the QR code, and we'll drop a link in the chat as well. So you can visit our website to learn more. And without further ado, I'm really, really pleased to turn it over to Sarah. Sarah King from Del Mar College, to really talk about all of the amazing work that they're doing to support students.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah King, and I'm from Del Mar College. We're a large 2-year public institution in South Texas. And I'm here today to talk to you about how our campus utilized the data dashboard to be able to have data-driven results for change for our students. So to kick it off, just really quickly, I wanted to talk about our task force. So we put together a fantastic group of individuals that represented various areas on our campus. That included advising, faculty, we have a student representative, information technology, financial aid, mental health, institutional research, and more. So we tried to have a very diverse Hope Impact task force for our campus. So that way we could have individuals come from different areas of expertise to be able to use this data in the way that we need to in order to make the change for our campus. Before I talk about what we've done with the data that we got from our dashboard, from our survey results, I did want to point out that our survey results were actually very similar. Our respondents were very similar to anyone who took this survey across the country. So we had a 13% response rate, which we were very proud of. We utilized the various communication recommendations that the Hope Impact program gave us. And so we were able to get a 13% response rate. The majority of those were non-LGBTQIA women who are students of color over the age of 30 and are part-time students. Interestingly, though, the majority of the respondents were not parents, which we thought was odd because we have quite a large parent-student base on our campus. And most of the respondents do not receive Pell Grant, which we also thought was odd because about 70% of our student population receives Pell Grant. So that was really interesting. The majority of our students at Del Mar are female. The majority are students of color, the majority are over the age of 24, and the majority are part-time. So the respondents of the survey pretty much matched our student population, except for, again, when it came to their parenting, identity, and then the Pell Grant. So those were some interesting differences in who answered and the reflection of our actual student population. So next, I'm going to talk about what Del Mar has done, what data we were able to pull from the dashboard, which, let me rephrase, what data we've even begun to be able to pull from the dashboard. There was so much in there, and just diving deeper and deeper and deeper into the dashboard, we were able to get some fantastic things out of it. But what we did as a task force is for our fall semester, we wanted to focus on 5 attainable goals using the biggest numbers that we found within our dashboard. And then from there, we plan to continuously meet and come up with either new ways to attain those goals if our particular strategy doesn't work, or even to see if maybe there are some new things we need to keep digging in just a little bit further. So again, we use the data dashboard and determine 5 main goals. I'm really only going to go into depth about one of them just to give you all an idea of what we did, how we came to this goal, but then I'll talk briefly about the others as well. So our first goal is communicating our services to our students. So the dashboard showed that 67% of our students reported that a lack of awareness was the chief barrier to accessing our services. So with the survey results, it also noted that after email, students preferred to receive text messages and online posts, which are like our LMS or Canvas. So interestingly, and I don't know if it's this way for you guys, but 84% of our respondents indicated that they wanted to receive email as their preferred communication system. But on our campus, we kind of see the opposite. We send emails and they just don't get them. They don't open them, they don't see them. And so we really honed in on that text messaging and online platform that the students discussed whenever they did their responses. So to take this data, what we plan to do, we plan to implement a strategic alert system in Canvas, which is our LMS, with targeted marketing throughout the semester on services that are relevant for that time frame. So for instance, in October, we have a very large mental health program on campus. And so we plan to utilize both financial aid and mental health alert systems within Canvas, because both of those 2 areas are pretty prevalent in the month of October. In November, we'll focus on our food pantry, so that way students can get their needs taken care of before they go on the Thanksgiving break. So again, we're being very strategic with the alert system that we plan to use within Canvas, so that way it's relevant to that time frame. Additionally, the data is being used to justify acquiring a text messaging service. Currently, Del Mar has a couple that different offices use, but we don't have one text messaging service that all of our offices can use, and none within our basic needs capacity. And now that we have the data to prove that students are not receiving word on how to get access to these services, and that they prefer to have text message, we now have the justification to move forward with acquiring a text messaging service. And that we are only able to prove through the data that we are able to obtain from the dashboard. So we're really excited to see that. Some other things that we're going to do, we plan to mail out welcome letters. I don't know about you guys, but I don't receive mail anymore. I get postcards. I might get, a bill, but I don't get a letter that says, "Hi, Sarah, welcome." And so with this information that we were able to obtain, our Dean of Engagement and Retention wants to send out an actual letter at the start of each semester, welcoming our new Vikings and talking all about the new student services programs that we offer for them. So that way they are not only getting an email, and they're also getting hopefully a text message, but they're also getting snail mail, as Lauren pointed out. Yes, snail mail's back, hopefully, but we'll see how that goes. The other thing that we plan to do is have campus-wide trainings for faculty and staff. A lot of the respondents did indicate that they receive information from word of mouth, so we wanted to make sure that all of our faculty and staff are fully trained on the different services that we offer on campus. And then we're working very closely with our faculty council to put a basic needs statement in syllabi. So that way, anytime a student receives their syllabus from their instructor, their professor, there's just a quick notation on there about basic needs resources and a website that I'm going to show you guys here in just a minute. Now, goal 2 through 5, it's all very similar. We used all of the data information that we could pull from the dashboard, and then that's how our task force put together these goals. So using those same techniques, some of the other goals included housing insecurities. So 54% of our students struggle with housing. So we established a goal that we're going to host a housing fair each semester, and we're going to work with housing in the area to find discounted or student housing rates. So that way we can promote those to our students. Next, we plan to, we had students who showed unmet mental health needs and were seeking informal support. So Del Mar was already proactive in that area. We recently acquired Therapy Assistance Online, or TAO. So our goal for the fall is to strongly promote this formal and informal approach to mental health services, and then continue to conduct workshops and trainings for our student, faculty, and staff. That way they know what types of services we have on campus, within the community, and to help meet that need of getting those services. Childcare continues to be a big issue for our students. So for goal 4, we had 87% of our students responded that childcare was unaffordable. Now, we are fortunate to have a facility on our campus, but we're going to continue working with them throughout the semester, using the data to be able to expand the services and offer additional financial assistance for our students trying to obtain on-campus childcare. And then our last goal, we were able to get through and acquiring various data, right? So within the data dashboard, we were able to, we want to work with our business office, financial aid, and our foundation office to find a flexible tuition payment schedule for our students. Because again, throughout all of the data, that was kind of the overall theme, is that finances are an issue. Finances are an issue when it comes to acquiring some services, when it comes to housing, when it comes to financial aid, when it comes to childcare. So we know that financials is where our students are really being hit the hardest right now. And so we want to work with the offices that we can to be able to provide a more flexible option for our students. So those are just the 5 goals that we have. Now, what you see here on the screen, we put together an infographic using the information that we obtained from the data dashboard, and it has an accompanying presentation. Those are those 3 little slides that you see at the bottom. And throughout the fall semester, we'll be presenting at faculty council, dean's council, professional development days, trainings for advisors, faculty, new hires. We want to get out this information as much as we possibly can. Even though our students tell us that they want to get the email and they want to get the text message, we know one of the primary ways that our students are going to get this information is through faculty, staff, and other students. So we want to make sure that everyone is as informed as they possibly can be, to be able to share this information with our students, and then work within those various offices and departments to try to meet these goals. As much as we would love to say, listen, this is what we're going to do this semester and you better get on board, I think we all know that's probably not going to happen. So if we're able to present this data behind it and have those real conversations with these offices, we truly do feel as a task force that we'll be able to make change. So those are just a few of the goals that we have, like I said, for the fall semester. On the next slide, though, I do want to talk to y'all briefly about what we've already launched. And this is Vikings Care. So this is a proactive measure that the task force took on very early in the HOPE partnership. And what it is, it's a one-stop site for our students to find both on-campus and community resources to get assistance as quickly as possible. Vikings Care was put together using links, videos, and contact information for services in areas including childcare, housing assistance, food insecurity, and more. We have a very robust communications calendar that'll kick off in the fall to make sure our students, faculty, and staff know about the Vikings Care site. Many of our communication tactics we actually pulled from the suggestions that HOPE provided to us whenever we were promoting the survey. So we have various days, various times that we're going to be doing, flyers and emails and text messages. So that way they're not being bombarded with the communication all at one time. And again, those are strategies that we pulled in working in the HOPE Impact Partnership. Again, so we're working with the faculty also to include that basic needs statement in the syllabus, and we want to include this site there. We also made the site extremely simple for students to find. You can see our QR code. We're going to be plastering it everywhere on campus. We've printed out small posters, and we're going to be putting them in placards or those plastic frames and putting them on the front desk of all of our advising offices, all of our departmental offices, so that way when students walk in, bam, they'll see a big QR code with Vikings Care on it. And we also made the website very easy to find, delmar.edu/Vikings Care. We wanted to make it as simple as possible for our students to get to. And if you have a chance, I strongly encourage you all to get onto that site. I believe our task force did a phenomenal job in trying to provide on-campus and off-campus services for our students. in one central area. And the way that it was designed, we made sure that if anything changed at those individual areas, it's not going to affect the website. The website is just this information storage center, I guess you could say. And so when a student clicks on the link, it'll take them to the actual website of the service that they're trying to find. So that is just a few of the things that Del Mar College has going on this fall semester that we're really proud of. And I want to thank some of our task force members who are on this call with us. We cannot thank our Hope Impact partners enough for the information that you provided. It really gave us great justification to kick off the fall semester, really improving our access for our student services and basic needs. Do y'all have any questions? My next slide there has our contact information, by the way. So that way, if you do have any questions, you're more than welcome to send me an email or give me a call. I'll be happy to walk you through any of the strategies that our task force put together.
Sarah, thank you so much for sharing all of the amazing work that you have underway at Del Mar College. It's truly inspirational, and I think I speak for our team too, that we get excited every time we hear from you, we hear from Del Mar, and learn more about what you have going on. So thank you so much for taking time to join us today and to share that work.
Thank you.
And oh, you're welcome. Next, we will close with just a few insights from students about why we do what we do, why we survey students about their needs, supports, and barriers, and why we are so passionate about working with schools like we have represented in this space who are working to meet students' needs. So we ask students, what does the world need to know about what it's like to be a college student? Just that it takes a lot of time, energy, dedication, sacrifice, and focus. Thank you for this survey. I hope this leads to a better life balance for students. I think looking at intersectionality in students is important. Thanks for this survey. I am rarely asked what it is like to be a student parent. Sometimes it gets overwhelming, but with having many resources, I feel like the stress would reduce down if us students are informed as often as it can be, and if we get out of our way to use those resources. These surveys are a way of informing us as well. So last but not least, I would like to thank the Crimson Bridge Foundation for providing startup funding and support for building the dashboard, and also the Prentice Farrar Brown and Align Forward Foundation, whose support of Texas community colleges has helped to bring all of this to fruition. And I'd really like to thank the hundreds of partners and institutions that have supported the Hope Center and joined us in our efforts to advance student basic needs efforts with the ultimate goal of advancing equity in college attainment. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you'd like to learn more, definitely reach out to Sarah and her team at Del Mar. You can follow this QR code to visit our website, learn more about the Hope Impact partnerships, and we're happy to continue sharing more about the data dashboard and our basics on basic needs learning modules. Thank you all.